Nobel Peace Prize for African Women. Over the last 2 years, this initiative has been developing and has taken shape with the presentation of the dossier to the Nobel Committee on the 1st of February. And little by little, every country around the world has become involved in this and interested in it. We are now traveling around in a caravan with representatives of various different African countries. And the caravan is intended to spread information about the experience of these African women. The campaign for the Nobel Peace Prize was established not just like any old initiative intended to win a prize. After years and years of experience and of learning about Africa, we witnessed the fact that African women are constantly walking. If you've ever been in Africa, you will always see women walking everywhere in Africa, and they do not walk alone. They walk together. You never see a woman walking alone. You will always see 2 or 3 women, groups of women walking together. And it is this collective, it is this walking together, this togetherness, which has such deep meaning. It is a stimulus, it's a specific example that demonstrates that life has to be lived together in community, in society. We need to live together and ensure our well-being. This is something which cannot be achieved through individualism. Women and men are social animals. They need one another. And thanks to their intelligence and their ability to build and take up the challenges of lives whilst respecting dignity and rights and the common goods of the entire international community, and they continue walking. This candidacy for the Nobel Peace Prize was put forward in order to underscore the importance of African women in carrying the African continent forward into the future and in providing us with the stimulus to build a community, a society that always walks with their heads high despite some of the often extremely harsh difficulties that they experience and the difficult problems they have to come to grips with. And I believe this gives rise to hope, which is sorely needed in the international community today. If we consider recent events, especially in the Mediterranean region, we will see that above and beyond the suffering and the drama of these events, which take place, and sometimes we see that there are dozens and hundreds of dead and blood flowing in the streets. Nonetheless, all of this gives rise to hope for all of humanity, and there are 2 fundamental reasons for this. First of all, people rise up in indignation against all of the injustice, the suffering, the misery and poverty, the lack of respect, the violations of rights, and the conflicts which harm women, which harm the weaker of us in society, which harms humanity as a whole. The second the second thing we see is courage, bravery. Women everywhere around the world often demonstrate great bravery and courage in facing the challenges of life. And they continuously invent new approaches and take new actions, and they never become discouraged. In recent days, in the various meetings, we've heard about this, and we'll hear testimony to this today as well from our friends, our sisters who are here with us today. We will hear how, under many, many different circumstances, they were capable of inventing new tools, new instruments, which have given rise to hope. When men, in the face of problems, often sit back, hands folded, in front of their houses, waiting for someone to bring them a solution. We need these examples. We need these tools and instruments in order to build a Europe which is at the center of the world. We need to hear about these experiences which have been a thread running through the history of man for centuries. We can establish thereby a meeting point and a point of departure. Now, I would like to turn to the program. You will hear more about the campaign in the course of the meeting, but I would like to introduce the participants. First of all, we have Madam Griesberg, who will give us an introductory address. Madam, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, especially ladies. I can see there aren't too many men in the room at the moment. Perhaps they're coming in. And as you were saying, perhaps they're on their way and will join us. President Barbera, Silvia Costa, thank you very much for joining us today. My colleagues from the European Parliament are here in the room. I'd like to thank them as well. And we know that Madam Amy Stewart will sing the hymn in a little while. We welcome her, and I'd like to welcome as well Clarissa Burt and everyone who is here and who have decided to come to the European Parliament so that together we can raise an international voice in favor of the campaign for a Nobel Peace Prize 2011 to African women. It is a great honor and privilege for me to make a few opening remarks this afternoon. This is going to be devoted to the presentation of the campaign and all of the surrounding structures. But we're also going to hear testimony from African women who have made a lengthy voyage in order to shed light on these issues. You yourself said it, Mr. President. Africa is made of women walking. Women walk everywhere in Africa despite all of the difficulties that they encounter. They are bearers of great hope, and they show us the strength and the resolve of women in Africa. As a European, I would like to welcome the objective of this campaign, to take decisions together and join forces together with everyone who is here so that the Nobel Peace Prize will be attributed this year to a rather atypical group, not to an individual or group of individuals, but will become a significant symbol by being awarded to the women of Africa. It is unusual. This campaign is original, but that is because it meets an objective that many of us around the world would support, and this even beyond the borders of the African continent. It is a way of showing the ever greater awareness of the role that women play in our societies. They play a vital role in Africa, in particular, in African societies. This is a concern that we must all share. As you reminded us, Mr. President, there are recent events in the world which tell us the great extent to which African women can make a difference, how important women are in daily life, in health care, in preventive care, in demonstrating the will to pass on collective memories and traditions, how important they are for education of young people. Now, this is something which is extremely important and is part of our collective memories. African women, in addition to this, also play a vital role in development policies, and also they play a major role in maintaining peace and in the struggle to restore peace in theaters of conflict that we see in Africa. Events which give rise to indignation against the suffering and violations that take place, rape and abuse that take place in these conflicts, and in particular where women are targeted. Now, there's a whole series of positive factors that show us the extent to which women play an absolutely paramount role in daily life. And it is a miracle that they survive sometimes, given the difficulties that their families face, if only to obtain enough food to protect themselves. It is the women who educate their children, even though we know they are facing enormous difficulties, sometimes legal difficulties, difficulties with inheritance, difficulties in enforcing the law, difficulties with their spouses. Huge challenges face them. And yet African women go ahead and play this role. Now, in development policy, turning to the European stage, for many years now, we have become aware of this situation. We have provided development assistance, deliberately targeting the strength of women or the potential of women to improve living conditions in their communities, and also in efforts in gaining access to health care and education for their children. Now, you, Mr. President, gave us a lovely metaphor a moment ago when you discussed the role of women in African life. I would like to add to what you've said. The figures, the statistics tell us that production, economic production in Africa is 80% on the shoulders of women, in particular in agriculture. So economic development can, of course, be improved, but this will depend essentially on the position of women in African societies. And although today sometimes this idea is challenged, the microcredit structures that exist are often in the hands of women these days, and they are able to work miracles with microcredit. They set up thousands of cooperatives in order to improve the well-being of the people in their communities around Africa. And this spurs economic and social development in Africa from the grassroots. You who are here with us today, ladies and gentlemen, are examples of the success of this type of initiative. The women of Africa are now penetrating a world which was in the past restricted to men, the world of business, the world of the law, the world of trade. Now, it must be even more difficult for you than it was for us here in Europe. Of course, things were not simple in Europe either, but little by little we're seeing improvements. You've used a very beautiful image. Africa walks. Africa is women walking. Women in Africa have gone a long way, and we can continue to go forward, walking together throughout the world in order to improve our quality of life and transmit to future generations, generation after generation, this image of women standing tall and building a democratic society. By way of conclusion, I would like to thank you all for joining us today. I'm very, very pleased that this meeting is being held. It is going to be enriching. It will enrich us because we will learn from your experiences, and we will establish new contacts and links amongst ourselves. we have decided to go forward together to win the Nobel Peace Prize 2011 for African women. Now, if we succeed, we can be proud of that success. And above and beyond the prize itself, this will enable us to continue to foster not only dialogue, but also to fruitfully carry out effective actions, cooperating with one another across our continents. Thank you all very much for coming to Brussels today. Thank you for continuing the struggle together to achieve this noble and just objective in such a difficult circumstance. Thank you.
Merci, Madame Griesbeck.
Thank you, Madame Griesbeck. Well, you've underscored some very important points. I'm going to speak in Italian. After all, Italian's a European language as well. Speaker switches from French into Italian. I would like to thank Madame Griesbeck and her European Parliament group for having given us so much support so that we could hold this meeting this afternoon. Her staff has been very, very helpful. Now, I'd like to pick up some of the points that you made, and then I'll give the floor to Member of Parliament Costa. A lot of what you said indicates that politics and policy in Europe is very important. You referred to the concept of cooperation. Meetings have taken place in recent days, and women have been emphasizing the fact that even if the Nobel Prize is won for African women, that is not really what's important. Money is not going to solve the problems of Africa. Projects of this kind are instruments, of course, but what is really important is a whole cooperation policy. If we are going to carry out policy, we must have dialogue. We must listen to one another. In our institutions, when I see that very few people are present at our debates, I feel that so many opportunities are being lost. To achieve our political goals, we need to listen to the voices of women who produce 80 or even 90% of the wealth in some countries, which allows people to survive. It's not the financial markets, it's not the stock exchange that allows us to carry on our daily lives. It is the small market in the town square where people sell the fruits and vegetables they've grown. It's the small businesses that allow families to get ahead. And if people do not listen to these experiences of women, of their associations, the risk is that cooperation efforts will be carried out but will not actually solve the real problems, will not safeguard rights and safeguard the common good. Between the 12th and 13th of June in Italy, we are voting on a referendum on water because they're taking water away from us. And yet women in Africa walk 10, 15, 20 kilometers a day to get water, and we are making it into a commercial market. And it means making our lives a commercial business. And pretty soon we'll start bottling air and selling it on the market. Who knows? In Europe, together with African women, we can pool our efforts and develop innovative policies. I'd like to give the floor to Madam Costa.
I'd like to thank Cisby and Guido Berbera for his capacity to convince, along with the association from Senegal, which has supported and launched this initiative. Now, this is a real provocation because this Nobel Prize to African women is a great idea. It's a strategic idea, and I immediately said yes to it. And many colleagues from my group, and I'd like to say thank you to ALDE for having done this. I was talking to some of my Italian colleagues men and women from the Italian Democratic Party and Rosla Calipa, because we also have MPs from African origin who supported the idea of the campaign and is with us with Herman. And I have here my colleague from ALDE and two outstanding witnesses, our journalist and actress, Bloom, and Clarissa Glund and Amy Stewart. I was asking her whether she was the daughter of Miss Stewart. I am honored because I've learned that she's become an Italian citizen. Oh, you too? That's right. It's a vast majority of Italian citizens here at the desk, at the panel. So I hope that this is going to reinforce the conviction of my own government to support Africa. I must say, over the years, we haven't done enough. I would like to say hello and pay a tribute to the women from Senegal, Cameroon, Sudan, Egypt, and various countries of Africa, but also from different organizations, ECOSOC. And so this is to say that we are going against some common places, because most people think that African women are weak women. That is so typical that people would say that. But it's the contrary. Many women are very, very strong. You can rely on her. You can really, and if you invest on women in African countries, it will have positive consequences on the family, on the country, on the economy. They are chiefly responsible for rearing the children. They are the ones who are going to cater for the food of their children and the family. Many women, unfortunately, are also suffering from HIV viruses, and many of those women will be single mothers and will have to fight alone because their families were destroyed by war. I'm thinking about the area of the Great Lakes, but it's not just in that area. So there is this double image, terrific strength, but this strength is turned into a weakness in most people's minds. So growth policies, territorial policies, democracy in your countries is what should make the difference, which should dismantle those obstacles and should make this strength something more than just a weakness. Now, we know in all of our countries that this was the common fight of all women. I decided to support this initiative because I also had a special page on my site, on my website, but I also invited three women from Africa who live in Italy. These are three ladies who represent vast communities. They embody also all those women who have to sacrifice so much to be inserted. I'm talking about the lady from Capo Verde. She's a journalist. I'm also thinking of Suzanne Diko, who comes from Congo. She's a gynecologist, and she has become the reference of a group called Femmes et Tam Tam d'Afrique. They are trying to cut across the different ethnic group and the different nationalities and to act in favor of all women of Africa. And also Maria José Mendes, who was also in charge of the Capo Verde community, and she arrived in Italy and continues her career as a sociologist. So this is to say that as European women, we have to do something about Africa, and through those women who can really interpret the real needs of those African women who stayed back home in Africa. Now, allow me to say two more things. When the campaign was born, Guido Barbera at the beginning, we thought it was a bit of a Don Quixote approach. Nobody would ever grant the Nobel Prize to a collective group of women from Africa. But I agree with what was said before. All it took was a few months to say that if Europe does not have a Euro-African vision, then it won't be playing its genuine role as European. We want to contribute to growth, development and democracy in Africa. And we want Africa to be able to take up all of the challenges of development. Cooperation to development, for instance, is something that we said in Italy should rely more and more on women's skills and competences, because they are a strategic part of development. And therefore, I'm referring to African women. I'm referring to women NGO in Africa. I've some familiarity with microfinances and microcredits given to women. This is something that really started a while back in the developing countries, and which is now very useful also for their integration in our countries. Now, all of our actions, all of our European policies should really highlight this particular aspect. And this is something that I've been dealing with for some time now. And CISP is the one that is going to circulate the text. We've drafted a draft initiative in the European Parliament Committee on Development. And most specifically, we are dealing with the right of ownership for land in the developing countries. And I specifically deal with the role of women and the absence of such right for African women. And according to the legislation that will or will not take that on board, the right to own land for a woman in Africa. There are real challenges which are dealing with resources, energy, land, electricity, water. And so this is the real new framework in which we need to fit the right to own land. Now, if Europe doesn't do anything about this in an authoritative way, not just at community level, but as Europeans, especially on all of these pieces of land which are being rented out for large periods of time, 99 years or so. Now, this is another form of colonialism. And I think that along with African women, we should analyze the impact that this could have on the countries there and the peoples there. I am the draft person of the committee, and I rely on our African friend to help me. I would like to say hello also on behalf of some friends from the European Parliament who could not be here today because we have some elections back home. But I wanted to be here personally, and I wish you all the best. Thank you very much, Sylvia, for this contribution and this provocation. I think that this issue of land ownership, you're right. I mean, we are there to support you, and the African Women's Association will also support you, because we said earlier that it is women who are working the land that belongs to someone else, but they are the ones who produce on that land. Now, unfortunately, we don't have that much time, because both Right Honourable Griesbeck and Costa have other commitments. We will also have some proposals for the end, and maybe we'll have a more numerous European presence then. I will give the floor now to Amy Stewart. It would have been nice to be able for us to hear the hymn that has been recorded for the campaign. We will see this in a video clip, but I suggest that she takes the floor now because she's the one who really enthusiastically took on board this initiative. She has the floor. Amy Stewart.
Good afternoon to everyone. A special good afternoon to my beautiful African sisters. I'm so proud to be here with you today. During my professional activities and as a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador, I've been privileged to visit countries with diverse characteristics and cultures, both in the Orient and in Africa. On a recent tour of India, I was confronted with a level of poverty so profuse as to be intolerable. A study by Harvard University has shown that instead of growing in height, African women diminish, contrary to other countries with the same poverty level at 0.2% per year. This is the demonstration of the difficulty with which African women, in silence and in unprecedented dignity, perform and confront daily life. When I was asked to record a theme song in favor of awarding African women the Nobel Prize for Peace, I was deeply moved. It was and is my intimate desire to take part in this initiative. It's a small gesture, but when you put small gestures together, incredible things can happen. Let's hope this is one of those incredible things. Thank you.
Ascoltiamo e vediamo ora anche delle immagini.
Yes, let's watch the video now. Amy hasn't seen this either, so it'll be new to her too. I hope that you like the way it's been put together. But above all, I think we'll all enjoy hearing the hymn.
Africa.
io ringrazio.
Well, Amy, thank you so much for your contribution to the campaign. Could I remind you that Paolo Casa is the composer of this music, and he composed this music on a voluntary basis, and it will be disseminated internationally. So we shall disseminate this hymn everywhere. Right. Let's discuss the campaign now, and we'll ask Clarissa to participate and tell us about her work as well. I would like to refer to the person who is more or less the godmother of this campaign. There was a discussion with her which gave rise to this idea of nominating African women for the Nobel Peace Prize in 2011. I'm referring to Hélène Yinda, a theologian from Cameroon. And she's had an opportunity to become a little bit more familiar with Europe. She's been in Geneva for 10 years, always working on behalf of Africa, but in a more or less European context. Hélène, would you like to join us here at the podium and tell us about your experience?
Doveva esserci qui.
We were also supposed to, yes, please come up to the podium, to have Eugenio Melandri with us as well, who is the spokesperson for Chiama Africa. Chiama Africa is an association, well, it started out as just a group of associations, congregations, local bodies, and so on. More than 12 years ago, they all got together because they felt the need to talk about Africa, but not about this negative image of Africa, which unfortunately is disseminated by the media all the time, and the images of which we see all the time. No, they wanted to talk about the Africa that nobody talks about, the positive Africa, the Africa that is walking, Africa which is standing with their heads high, and whose women are walking. How many of you know that in 1236, the ancient empire of Mali, the letter of Kurunkafuga was written? This was really a declaration of universal rights, and it's what we've had here for, 60 years now. The words were slightly different, the approach was slightly different. After all, it was 7 centuries ago. But basically, that's what it boils down to. If we're going to live together, we must have a minimum set of rules which enable us to live together. But it wasn't only that. In addition, at that time, they had emphasized the importance of hospitality, of living together, of respecting the environment, and respecting essential values and the common good of society. Africa, as was written in a beautiful book, even today is supporting the West. There are many things that we need to recover from them in order to properly carry out our political work. I'd like to give the floor to Hélène Yinda, who is going to tell us about what motivates her and about her thinking. Hélène is a very strong, wise woman, and she knows how to get strong messages across, despite all of her great gentleness as a woman. You have the floor.
Bonsoir.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Guido, for those kind words. I think that every single speaker before me mentioned the fact that the campaign is rooted in the many encounters that have given rise to a network. And we are now dealing with the spider web of relationships. Before I actually introduce you to the campaign, I would like to thank you on behalf of my sisters, on behalf of all sisters and brothers who are not here with us today. Women of Africa are very grateful to Gypsy and Camel Africa that have been supported by the Foreign Office in Italy and the international cooperation. This is thanks to them that we are here today, supported by parliamentarian groups. Thanks to them, we have already won that Nobel Prize. This candidacy has a special meaning to us. Our mothers, our grandmother would never have thought this day would come. They would never have thought that we would have the opportunity to talk in the European Parliament. Our father and forefather would have thought less even. This is a symbolic event. This is a major signal that shows the greatness of African women's dreams. This initiative isn't only unusual, it also brings us to thinking differently and to shouldering new responsibilities. We must together build a new world, and we must bear a new child, a new society for Africa. We've been doing this for years and years. We keep repeating it over and over, but African women carry the world and carry Africa. We're talking in the name of nameless women who never have been shown anywhere. But these women are the women who walk for Africa. Our work as African women has enabled us to be the makers of peace. We've built peace daily. We've built solidarity within our communities. Our sisters from the European Parliament have shown how we've topped everything. We've shown genius. We keep feeding the continent. Our breast feed the babies. They give the first lesson of life. They keep feeding our society. We keep feeding our continent. Fertility for African women is not only physical, but it's also economic, political, and cultural. Thanks to us, Africa hasn't collapsed yet. Africa still stands. Despite all torments, despite globalization, which is harsh on those poor countries, the commitment of African women has enabled us to stay strong. And this campaign shows our strength. The women who don't do anything in Africa are very seldom. Since the break of dawn till night falls, we work, we walk. We know that our conditions of life are very harsh, and within the pain that we suffer every day, we find strength. We find a ray of light that will guide our strides. You've heard the song, you've heard the anthem, you've seen the African women. We have hope, always. We are joyful every day. And every day we feel full of dreams to build a new African society. Sometimes we act upon our pain, but today we are ready to shoulder new responsibilities as African women. We won't dwell in misery. African women are ready to create solidarity. They will protest if they need to. They will be resilient, and they fight against anything that will go against her, anything that has been imposed on her. This is a new image for African women. This is not the African woman that is portrayed in Western media. Anything that depicts us as non-dignified people, or people, women who deserve to be treated rightly, we will fight. We have denounced every cultural practices that did not grant us humanity. This is our questioning today. This is how we see our daily life. We ask a lot of questions. Every single time we go back to our villages, women ask us, what is democracy all about? What is cooperation all about? What is globalization? What does it mean? Those questions are very hard to answer. We cannot always find an exact definition. We cannot depict these realities for them within their realities. Are we able to find a definition for democracy today? Well, today we have the opportunity to ask Europe, and you've given us this chance. I hope we won't miss it, because together we need to hold hands and reinvent theories, concepts, notions that will enable us to find new and renewed humanity. Is democracy a dictatorship held by the powerful? Is democracy the result of every single election? Are people putting their ballot in the box really expressing their voice? Those are the questions we ask, and we think that you will give us answers. We are ready to reinvent theories, to react to our environment. Cooperation, is that what you are giving us today? Are you supporting us because of human solidarity? I think our presence here today is the result of cooperation. You have imposed no condition on our coming today. You have just given us an opportunity. This is solidarity, and this is what we aim at. But given the reality of living in Africa today, we do wonder whether cooperation has anything to do with aid, if it has anything to do with the richness of Africa. Help us to go back to Africa with answers, because the women in our villages, they do need those answers. Today, we want to assert ourselves, because we are human beings, because we are marching on for Africa and for a dignified world. We are fighting for life. Every single woman who will speak today will talk about her experience. You've heard about what is done in Africa. You've read it in the newspapers. But those are only a drop in an ocean that increases every day. Those drops are the drops that fertilize the African soil. Women who are proud have now come into the public sphere. And thanks to all these drops, we have come in a wave today to the European Parliament. And we want rain to fall on the African soil to bring out the plants. And for African women, those plants are our victory. And this is why we are standing now in front of you. Thank you.
Merci, Hélène.
Thank you very much, Hélène. When you speak, your thoughts are always crystal clear. Well, usually we do this at the end, but I would like to, in a little aside, just thank our interpreters. Well, thank you. In the European Parliament, ordinarily, we have prepared speeches. Of course, today we don't have prepared speeches. Today we're improvising because we wanted to speak spontaneously from the heart about the experiences of women who tell us about their life experiences. And we also want to look everyone in the eye when we speak. So, as I listen to you today, it warms my heart to hear your words. And I realize that that makes it a bit more difficult for the interpreters to translate such spontaneous speeches. So I just wanted to give them a word of thanks. Thank you, we appreciate it. Before I give the floor to Clarisse, I would like to show you a video message. Now, above and beyond political creed, this is a person who really believes in our campaign. This is somebody I met. We discussed this at great length, and this person is very much persuaded of this campaign, is one of the official signatories of the candidatures. This is the Italian Foreign Affairs Minister. He was supposed to join us. We did set the date together, but unfortunately, international politics and Italian politics prevented him from joining us today, and so he sent a video message. Francesca, would you be kind enough to show us this video?
Care amiche, cari amici, è un piacere poter almeno comunicare attraverso questo videomessaggio la mia convinta partecipazione, il mio pieno sostegno all'iniziativa che poi replicheremo a Roma tra pochissimi giorni, che mi vedrà presente a salutarvi per testimoniare la mia adesione ancora una volta al progetto di conferire il premio Nobel alle donne africane. Voi sapete che io ho personalmente firmato la proposta che è stata raccolta della candidatura per il premio Nobel. Sapete anche che ho considerato da sempre, dall'inizio del mio mandato di Ministro degli Esteri, l'attenzione.
The interpreters would just like to point out that we're not able to translate videos. Basically, the message is a message of support from Minister Franco Frattini of Italy.
Ogni giorno di più. Il Ministero degli Esteri, anche con il Dipartimento della Cooperazione allo Sviluppo, ha finanziato dei progetti che si stanno realizzando. Quando noi abbiamo intitolato un progetto importante, un progetto di educazione, l'Africa cammina sui piedi delle donne, evidentemente abbiamo voluto significare la centralità della dimensione femminile per lo sviluppo del continente africano. Abbiamo fatto molto anche altri progetti che sono dedicati allo sviluppo della condizione femminile nel settore del lavoro, dell'educazione, dell'istruzione, e poi abbiamo molto, e ho personalmente lavorato alle Nazioni Unite per questa piaga della violenza contro le donne che in particolare nel continente africano, non solo purtroppo in Africa, ma molto in Africa, colpisce con questo fenomeno orribile delle mutilazioni genitali delle bambine e delle giovani donne, che è un grave crimine che noi speriamo sia bandito finalmente da una risoluzione dell'Assemblea Generale dell'ONU durante questa sessione che è ancora in corso. È chiaro che per il resto noi pensiamo che tutta la dimensione dello sviluppo africano veda nelle donne, nella loro crescita, nella loro emancipazione, anzitutto culturale, ma poi ovviamente familiare, lavorativa, sociale, un punto di forza di questo continente, che è un continente giovane, in cui vi sono classi dirigenti preparate, che conoscono il mondo, che vogliono farsi conoscere. E noi credo abbiamo un dovere morale, ancor prima che politico istituzionale, un dovere etico di sostenere questo cammino delle donne africane che purtroppo lo vediamo in tutti i momenti di crisi, sono quelle che portano il peso maggiore. Il volto della disperazione di giovani madri nei flussi di profughi che arrivano verso l'Europa è una delle fotografie che riconoscono la loro sofferenza, il loro valore, anche il loro straordinario coraggio. Ci sono oggi a Bruxelles tra voi donne africane che hanno raggiunto importanti traguardi nella società a livello nazionale, a livello internazionale, e ovviamente voi con il sostegno internazionale, che spero sarà giorno dopo giorno sempre più forte, avrete la possibilità di guidare questo percorso e di ottenere questo riconoscimento simbolico che premi la fatica, che premi l'impegno, la determinazione e soprattutto quella volontà di accompagnare il continente africano, che è ormai chiaro a tutto il mondo, è un continente di opportunità a cui tutti dobbiamo guardare con fiducia. Quindi buon lavoro e arrivederci tra brevissimo a Roma.
Bene.
Thank you. Now, Clarissa Burt is a wonderful actress and has had extensive experience. And she is deeply committed to journalism, and in particular women's themes and violence against women. She has devoted herself to new activities in the United States, where she is currently living, on these issues. She heard about this campaign, and apparently she felt as though she had been hit by a lightning bolt, and she immediately became involved and started promoting the campaign in the United States. So I would like to give her the floor. She's going to tell us why she was so struck by the campaign.
I decided to speak in English because most of my sisters here tonight are English speaking, so I would like to be doing that in honor of them. First of all, you still have to show me the pictures of your grandchildren. Don't forget that we had that conversation with Elena, and then I've got an open invitation to go to Egypt anytime I want, which makes me very, very happy. So I'm so thrilled to have known all of these wonderful women. Yeah, I am living in the United States now. I've been there for 6 years, and I got a call about 2 months ago from Dr. Barbera asking me if I would be interested in the United States and letting them kind of know what's going on with Walking Africa. I did say yes, and I have been working ever since, trying to get the word out as much as I possibly can. I have gotten to Oprah's Gayle King. I have spoken to the offices of Condoleezza Rice. I have gotten to the Oprah Winfrey Network, and hopefully within a very short amount of time, we will have some sort of positive news in riguardo. So that would be another thing if we could really get on a grand scale, huge, the stampa di massa, a lot of really good publicity in the United States, because I think they need a little toe tickling in the United States as far as what the Nobel Peace Prize really is and I'm not trying to say that my compaesani are not really the most intelligent people on the face of the earth. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it seems to be Africa so far away from them at times. I think they don't really get it. And I think that the Nobel Peace Prize for them is something that they really need to be sort of reminded of how important that fabulous prize really is. So I'm working very diligently, and I had some really great interviews today, because what my idea was, my main scope for being here was to come in to meet all of the women, because it's kind of hard to know them by reading about them and from, hearing about them. It was really my duty to come here and to meet each one of them one by one, to get to know them by name, and to do the interviews with them today, which was really, really amazing, because they all have such extraordinary stories. And I do feel as though, it is at least my duty, in as much as this is, to me, a sisterhood. Women are a sisterhood, they just track that way. That's just the way they are. And it doesn't matter what color your skin is, and it doesn't matter what religion you adhere to. It matters that women really beat from their heart first. They are caretakers. They take care of their mothers, their fathers, their daughters, their sons. They take care of everybody else but themselves. And then when they need help, they turn to their sisters. So I'm really thrilled to be here today. Thanks so much to each one of you for that opportunity. And I believe that, we all are sisters, and that my heart today is beating African for the honor of being with you all today. So thanks very much for the possibility and the opportunity.
Grazie.
Thank you, Clarice. Well, I think that this knowledge approach, the approach of knowledge, is one of the keys to be taken into account in any policy. We need to know what's going on if we want to talk about it. We need to know what's going on if we're going to find answers to the challenges we face. We would like to hear from our African sisters now. They represent thousands and thousands of African women. These are women who are personally deeply committed on a daily basis in associations, in networks of associations. They have so many connections in so many ways. Now, I've met some of them at GMAC. GMAC is the African Community for Gender Equality. They meet twice a year. Before the parliamentary meeting of the African Union. They get together and discuss various problems and submit position papers. They meet heads of state and government who are responsible for these issues, and they submit to them specific proposals. And they also make very strong statements about rights. And even in technological, scientific, business, and economic fields, they make all kinds of proposals. So these are really excellent experiences, and we can learn a lot from them. I would like to begin by introducing a person who has 50,000 different kinds of commitments. I don't know how she manages to follow everything, but she does. I would like to call upon Madame Amani Asfour from Egypt. She's the president of the Business Association of Women in Egypt. She's the chairperson for Human Resources, Science and Technology. She's a member of the cluster for the Economic and Social Policy in the African Union. So she's always on the move. And she's also always following everything that's going on everywhere around Africa. So she's always aware of the latest developments in women's issues. Madam Amani Asfour.
Thank you very much. I am really honored to be here among all of you in this, the European Parliament, and having our distinguished guests here hearing what we have to say from Africa. We thank GIPSI for organizing this, because African women as they deserve Nobel Prize, they also deserve partnership with all over the women of the world and all the authorities. African women are not like they are stereotyped in the media as very negative images. There are very positive images in Africa, and that's why me and my sisters here are coming together to show our experiences with you. First, because I am coming from Egypt, from North Africa, and all of you have heard what the revolution in Egypt has happened because of the fight against dictatorship, fight for social justice. Just before starting my presentation, I would love to ask you all to stand one moment silence for those who lost their lives in North Africa, in Egypt, Tunisia, Libya. So, thank you very much. As you all know, all of us know that with the Millennium Development Goals, all of the United Nations member states, they put 8 goals for our development in all over the world. And we in Africa are most suffering from what you just say, from illiteracy, from diseases, from hunger. And the MDGs #1 is to eradicate extreme poverty and hunger. We will never do that unless we really empower women in Africa to be able to have their economic independence, to be able to eradicate such poverty and hunger. The second is to achieve universal education. We know that there is a lot of illiteracy in Africa, but what can we do really to have really well-educated women who can be part of the decision makers in all over Africa? How can we promote gender equality and empowerment of women? We heard from our distinguished panelists here that there is very much laws which inhibits women for inheritance and for having access to property. What can we do in order to have economic empowerment of women? And with the efforts to reduce child mortality, maternal health, and combat HIV/AIDS, these are all health struggles in Africa that we are really, as all women of Africa, trying to do for access to health care for women all over Africa. How to reduce maternal mortality, because there is 1 every 15 women who is dying giving birth. This should never happen in the 21st century. How can we combat HIV/AIDS and there is no retroviral drugs in Africa? It has to be imported. Why don't we manufacture it actually in Africa? And how to ensure environmental sustainability. All of us know that about climate change, Africa is the real suffering from climate change because of droughts, and that's because of the industrialized countries are those who are really emitting the carbon dioxide. So how can we really have developed global partnership, which is the 8th goal of Millennium Development Goals? Our presence here, I believe, is how we can achieve such partnership on equal basis between Africa and Europe. And all of us know that what's happening now across the Mediterranean is affecting Europe, is affecting the world. So peace and security can never be achieved actually except on the development of Africa and the empowering the women of Africa. You see, this is the map of our African women that's coming together, 53 countries. So 53 countries of Africa, what can we do actually together on equal basis in order to achieve economic development in Africa through the empowering of our African women? Through such women who are present here, we are the symbol of African women. What can we really do together? I just want to share with you, these are our Egyptian women who did the revolution, and this is one training session we have been doing after the Egyptian revolution, coming together on how to build a strong economy of Egypt after such a revolution, which was, this is the base for social justice. You know that 1919, women already in Egypt went for revolution against the British occupation, and actually there was a march for the improvement of women education to ensure political and social equality. This is 1919 with the women of Egypt, and this is the Women of Egypt 2011, during the Egyptian Revolution in Tahrir Square, which is the liberation movement that all of us in North Africa, in all over Africa, are looking for how to really achieve the development and the economic growth based on social justice, rule of law, and democracy. We have seen now how democracy has been a one-word, keyword among all those who spoke before. So how can we achieve such democracy, rule of law, and social justice? And the bridge across the Mediterranean is between Europe and Africa, is the Mediterranean. There will always be instability and immigration exported to Europe unless we really have development all over Africa. So actually, how can we really achieve such development to secure peace and security in the world? How can we empower women? Because economic empowerment of women and peace and security are two faces of the same coin. Women of Africa are the victims of conflict and war. How women in Africa should be the drivers of economic growth. We know that 80% of women are working in agriculture, but not in agribusiness, which means that we are cultivating for the whole world to export raw materials, but we are not manufacturing our food for us. Women are in formal sector, so how can they be empowered to start their companies and their small and medium enterprise? And here I always say that women are always confined by microgratitude. Why should it be only microgratitude? We need to uplift the women from micro to small, small to medium, medium to large. Women has to be owners of large companies. They have to be CEOs. They have to be decision makers. Actually, this is our message. How can we do that? We all know that Africa is the richest continent on earth, but yet it is the poorest of them all. This is actually why, because we don't invest in our human resources. Here, our women are the real drivers for economic growth. We don't invest in education, scientific research, and in technology. We don't industrialize our raw materials. We don't manufacture our drugs. We don't process our food technology. We just cultivate it to export it. All the raw materials in Africa are exported as such, added value to it, and we import it again. The real partnership between us in Africa and Europe is how to be on equal basis, what can we do to empower the private sector, our women, how to build the capacity of the human resources, including women and youth, to develop Africa, and how to achieve real partnership in the world based on equal basis and achieve African development and not for the exploitation of resources of Africa. So actually empowering women through education, building capacity, access to technology and financial resources is what we are doing, and this is how it is based on. So how to really empower women also in conflict zones. We know that there are a lot of conflict zones in Africa. So how can we build the economy and how to rehabilitate women survivors of conflicts and to create jobs and help in economic growth? Why economic empowerment of women to be part of decision-making and to achieve sustainable development? We can never have a sustainable development unless we really empower our women in Africa. And why we empower women? What is real power? It's really the potency, the capacity to act and to implement. And that's why our distinguished panelists here, with all your partnership, if we really want to be powerful, we need to make it happen. So in order to make it happen, we have to work all together to have real power. And in this, we have the 3 Ps, which all of us have to look about it. I call it the 3 pillars of the triad of empowerment. The first P is the personality, how we empower the personality of our women in Africa to be able to lead, to be educated, to build their capacity, to be able to lead an enterprise, to be able to be in the parliament, the real personality of the women. The second P is the policy and the procedures, how we mainstream gender into the policy and the politics. I know here European Parliament is now talking about how to empower women. Also, all over in Africa, we are looking forward how to empower women, so the laws and the infrastructure, the legislation should be in favor of women. And of course, I want to share best practice in Africa, because I am representing the African Union, ECOSOC, which is the Economic, Social, Cultural Council. We were privileged to have in the African Union gender parity. I don't think it is still here in Europe, but this is how we learn together. In African Union, there are 5 commissioners women and 5 commissioners men, gender parity. This is how we lobbied and advocated to have gender parity, and I think we have to do that, to lobby and advocate for all the policies across Africa to mainstream gender. And the third P I call is the product, how we empower the women in the private sector to have a good product, to be able to trade this product, to be able to serve her community, what product is good to add value to it. And this is a circle that all of us are working on it, how to empower the women since childhood, a girl, so democracy starts at home, no discrimination between a girl and a boy, that's what we are lobbying for. The second issue is education, capacity building, training, entrepreneurship, access to financial resources. We always hear, as I said, a microcredit. We need also to talk about more than microcredit, access to financial resources up to small, medium, and large companies. Access to technology, technical assistance, advocacy, why we are here to advocate for the Nobel Prize for Women. Nobel Prize for Women in Africa is really how to put a cornerstone of the achievements the women of Africa are doing to the world, not only for African continent. The women of the Africa are the real cornerstones where development is based on their shoulders, where all of the suffers are based on their shoulders. So how can we advocate and lobby to highlight these efforts of our African women? And of course, in order to do that, we have to do projects for the women in order to empower them. Based on the partnership of the government, the civil society, and the private sector, I am sharing with you one project we did in Egypt. It's the African Business Development Center, how to empower the women in order to start their businesses, in order to build their capacity, in order to give them premises to start their company, to promote them in ICT, and technology, and to give them technical assistance to transfer technology to their businesses. This is called the Hatshepsut Business Development Center to promote economic empowerment of women and women entrepreneurs. You see now that this is the training center we started in Egypt to promote the women. And these are one of the sessions we started with the women after the revolution, the young girls who really have to be part of the economy of Egypt. And they are very enthusiastic about building the new democratic Egypt based on social justice. And this is the ICT center that we are promoting to have access to technology for women. And this is actually the sessions in the universities. In order to lobby and advocate and give awareness, we went to the girls in the universities and students to be able to be part of the building the economy. We also went to the rural areas where I always say we have to link technology with simple technology. We did some projects, and that's what we are doing all over Africa, is to have, this is a small, simple technology project, which is dried tomato in the south of Egypt in the rural area. We give them the know-how, how to do it, and this is a community project which gives the girls have lot of jobs, and then they are empowered, and they have the end product which we exported here for you in Europe. So the markets should be actually open for the products of Africa. This is partnership. This is how we can open markets for our products of women in Africa, and we empower them. We also involve the community leaders, the children, the families to be part. And this is one of the projects we did in Darfur, in Sudan, where we made a mapping exercise. What are the needs of the women in Darfur? What do they need? So we discovered that they need to empower them to start their own projects. We started a small project, which is a chicken farm in Darfur, very small thing. But this small chicken farm now is supplying 500 families in the communities. The women are employed. There is stability and security across the project. So it shows really how what we can do. Also, the women, the cross-border cross-border women traders, which you don't know about. These are the women who are really trading between the borders in all over Africa, between Zambia and Zimbabwe, Ethiopia and Djibouti. They have no voice. So we did projects for them to train them about their rights, and we talked to the heads of states of Africa, how can these women actually get the rights of the trade agreements that we are putting to be implemented on the grassroots. These are women from Zimbabwe. You see how many products they have, but these products have to be marketed, and we have to be their channel to market these products. And also in Namibia, you can see there is a lot actually of women across Africa that are going to be empowered by all the association we are trying to do. And this is actually one of the conferences we just finished in Egypt after the revolution, the African Congress for Women Entrepreneurs to meet the Millennium Development Goals. We know that Millennium Development Goals can never be achieved unless we really work on economic empowerment of women, because our way for peace and security in Africa is economic growth, based on social justice, democracy, rule of law, and investment in our human resources, including women and youth, in partnership with international partners on equal basis. And to empower our women, we have to promote social justice and enhance their role in their private sector, promote women entrepreneurship, invest in technology, and promote inter-African trade and opening markets. So actually, our way for economic empowerment of women, why? To achieve financial independence. Because why financial independence? To have the power of choice and voice. Our women of Africa should have their choice and voice, and this can never be achieved unless we really are financial independence through economic empowerment. And this I want to share with you on my last slide. Our goal is economic empowerment of women. Our slogan is financial independence, give you the power of choice and voice. And our message is young women entrepreneurship promotion. And because I started from Egypt, I am ending with Egypt. Our symbol is Queen Hatshepsut of Egypt, who ruled Egypt 3,500 years ago. Women were empowered thousands of years ago. She ruled Egypt. At her age, it was the golden age of Egypt. She did trade between Egypt, India, and the Horn of Africa. And that's why we always say that women should be empowered for the prosperity of our countries, of our continents. And I am happy to share with you, with being here in the European Parliament, to see what can we do together in order to build such partnership across the Mediterranean. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Amani. Thank you very much for emphasizing the role of the economy in empowering women. We all realize that it isn't possible to come to grips with social problems unless you have economic power. Let's go on now to hear about another experience. And this is in just as important a sector today as the communications. We know that the world revolves around communication. Now, Fatma Fall is from Senegal. She is the director of a communications agency. We were fortunate enough to work together a few months ago when we organized a meeting with African women's associations in Dakar, a place called Peking, just in the suburbs of Dakar, where there are 2.5 million population. Now, Fatma Fall is involved in scientific work in Senegal. Later on, we're going to hear another presentation, also from Senegal, by the way. In Senegal, the campaign is being carried out as well as in the rest of Africa. This is not a proposal which has come from Italy or Europe for African women. No, this is, in a certain way, the beginnings of a different type of cooperation with Africa. I would like to ask Fatma to come up to the podium and tell us about her experience.
Merci.
Thank you very much, Guido. Distinguished members of the European Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, my friends, today I'm not actually going to talk to you about my experience in the communications sector. It is a great honor for me to be able to speak to you about the institution where I have learned an awful lot. I've worked in this institution, and I think that any knowledge that we acquire must be left to future generations. I would like to thank my sisters who've spoken already, and I would like to thank the honourable members of the European Parliament. You have certainly understood what our struggle involves. Today, we've come here to tell you that we are counting on you for support in our efforts to win the Nobel Peace Prize for the Women of Africa. We know you are committed to contributing to the development of Africa, and certainly you will succeed in your mission if we look at the amount of assistance attributed to the countries of Africa in the European Union budget. But nonetheless, can we say Africa is developed or developing? A huge part of our population lacks the most basic needs. Water, electricity. It's difficult for Africa to obtain enough food for their children. Africa is poor. But African women are the main victims of this poverty, despite the preponderant role that they play in development and in settling the conflicts in Africa. Now, every single day, African women work to restore, consolidate, and maintain peace on our continent. I could give you specific examples from everywhere in Africa, but we did not come here today to talk about the poverty or misery of African women. We did not come here to tell you about the suffering of African women. There's always an exception to every rule, of course. We have come here today to talk to you about the dynamic, courageous, determined women of Africa. We've come here to talk about the women who are engaged in every battle and who are carrying the weight of the continent on their shoulders. We want to talk about those women who work hard every day so that Africa will develop. The women of Africa who have promoted NOPAO, the Nobel Peace Prize, to African women. These are the women who have brought this campaign forward. Distinguished members of Parliament, we have come to you and we ask for your support. Open your doors. Get your peers involved. There's not too many of you here with us today. We would like everyone to join our cause. And your contribution to obtaining the Nobel Peace Prize 2011 for African women, your contribution is vital. African women deserve the Nobel Prize. Now, certainly those who have not understood this will ask, why would you give a Nobel Peace Prize to all African women? What would this mean? What's the point? Given the derisory amount of money involved and the large number of African women. How can a Nobel Peace Prize change things in Africa for thousands and thousands of African women? Well, we hear these questions every single day, and I think it's important to answer. But before doing so, I would like to come back for a moment to the Schuman Declaration of 1950 on the construction of Europe. Let us think back to the Schuman Declaration and recall This declaration was considered to be the founding act of the European Union, and it is incumbent upon you to find the appropriate resources in order to ensure that the development goals of Africa are met. And the best way to meet these objectives is to empower the true actors in development and get international recognition for them so that they can continue their work above and beyond the Nobel Peace Prize and continue their determined activities. They must be recognized. If you give the Nobel Peace Prize to African women as a whole, this is acknowledging that Africa is one and undivided. United, Africa will develop. Without unity, we will not develop. And this is the road that we must take. It is indispensable for our development. You, the members of the European Parliament, have worked hard to make the European Union sustainable. The same goes for Africa. If you want to contribute to the development of Africa, help Africa unite. Unite in their diversity. Unite for the well-being of the citizens of Africa. Some have said that we couldn't use this sort of language because it's not in their interest. It is not in the interest of Europe, they say, for Africa to be united. Well, let's consider this. We prefer to speak frankly. If you are our friends, support the No Pow campaign. If you are our enemies, then speak out against us, shoot us openly and frankly. We prefer to know that you are our friends and our allies. We are persuaded that you are in favor of a just and fair Africa, a prosperous Africa, an Africa of solidarity. That is our appeal. Support our campaign for the Nobel Peace Prize 2011 to be given to the women of Africa. One final word, if I may. If the women of Africa win the Nobel Peace Prize, this would be for all women, whatever continent they live on, because they will identify with the women of Africa and know that their role is the same. So please, I appeal to you, sign our petition. These anonymous women work every single day so that Africa can live in peace and develop. Give them an opportunity to come out of the shadows and truly contribute to the flourishing of our continent. Thank you.
Merci, Fatma.
Thank you, Fatma. Well, you are giving us all kinds of food for thought and inspiring us to continue our work. It's true that Africa suffers from many problems. In some ways, it is a poor continent. But Africa is also a font of great wealth. Perhaps the biggest problem of Africa today is, in fact, its wealth, not its poverty. That's true not only today, but back into history as well. Think back. Think back when America needed labor to work the land. They went to Africa to find the people. When we needed raw materials, we colonized the countries of Africa. African countries became independent 50 years ago or so. But now we've seen new models which have recolonized Africa to take their wealth in order to produce our own wealth. How much poverty have we got today in Europe? Look in Italy, look at the European countries. In recent days, with Hélène and others, we've had some very interesting debates with Africans who live in Europe, and they recalled the poverty of Africa, and they said, well, yes, but how much poverty lies before us? We're talking about people who are beginning to see how difficult it is to make ends meet at the end of the month, people who are living in the streets. There are many, many different types of poverty. Now, it's true that a lot of strong, provocative statements are made from Africa to us, but I think the time has come to try to achieve an objective which we somewhat presumptuously set for ourselves. We need to think about a new kind of cooperation. A new kind of cooperation which will ensure that the commitments of Europe, of its member states, its governments, are kept. When we talk about cooperation today, we've considered the idea of state-to-state assistance, budgetary support, for instance, but we do know that many governments do not know how to manage the resources for their people. We know that in many countries there's corruption. So suppose we provide budget support for the state. Well, that's all very well. The state is supposed to be the guarantor of the well-being of the people. But if it doesn't work, it's like filling up a car with petrol when the car motor doesn't work. So we need to discuss all of these things once again. And I'm saying that here today in a meeting room of the European Parliament, where we've got a committee that is responsible for cooperation and development. We have committees responsible for human rights, gender issues, equal opportunities. There are many, many fora, many venues which are supposed to develop different approaches, specific approaches which will guarantee the well-being of people. But politics always intervenes, and the results are mediocre. Europe today is becoming disenchanted, disillusioned. The European citizens are distancing themselves from the European Union and the European institutions because we're not seeing any results. Africa is not seeing the results it should from cooperation assistance, and so perhaps it's right for them to distance themselves. Where do we see the results of cooperation? We see results being achieved by women in their associations in Africa. Now, one thing that struck me when I explained this campaign to the first meeting of the GMAC, the first time I participated. Now, they asked me a lot of questions, and they said, look, we're wondering, and Amani was there, we're wondering if the world actually sees what African women are doing. Do people know about it? And this campaign, NOPAO, is a signal that somebody is beginning to understand what is happening. So, we can attribute the Nobel Peace Prize because we are increasingly becoming aware of what is being done in Africa. But we need to build a strong alliance to support this initiative. I think it was Hélène who said a little while ago that this is something which is good not only for Africa, we all need it. That said, let's move on to another significant experience from a woman in Africa. She was born in Senegal, she's lived in Mali, she married somebody from Burkina Faso. So really she brings together 3 different countries of Africa. Moreover, she married the son of a very important historian, perhaps the greatest historian in Africa, Kizerbo. Fatou Mata Kane is her name. She's a writer, a journalist, but she's also a manager. She's held a position of high responsibility in a bank. And she's a person who volunteered to participate when she heard about this campaign. She came to us and said, here I am. I want to contribute to this campaign. So let us listen to Fatou Mata.
Bonsoir à tous.
Good afternoon to you all. Dear Member of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to be with you today and to be the voice of the women of my continent. It is an honor, but it also gives great hope to women in Africa to be candidates for the Nobel Peace Prize, especially in the light of the terrible conflicts that afflict our continent. African women bear an incredible burden. They need to bring children towards a sustainable peace, and their commitment is a tribute to this task. Honorable members of Parliament, African women are mainly disregarded. Their rights are not recognized. They are afflicted by the destruction of their countries, by the conflicts between politicians, all of which break their stamina and bring them back to misery and poverty. They are now angry to be taken hostage of partisan wars, which have no compassion for a continent that has already suffered a great deal. Honorable members of Parliament, my voice today is that of my sisters. We ask for mercy to the whole world. We ask for more dignity. We ask for fair trade. We ask for the end of exploitation. We ask for leaders, a leader that will not be the pawn of Western powers. My voice and that of my sisters wishes for just information. A lot is done in our name, for our interest, but all these actions end up being violence against us. And we are helpless in light of the media. I would like to appeal to you. I would like for you to listen to me and to help me. We have been turned into beggars, and we don't want that. We want you to contribute and to commit yourself to NOPOW, to the award of the Nobel Peace Prize to African women who live in dire conditions, but who create a peaceful environment for their families first, and therefore for their communities. My sisters want to extract themselves from the resolutions of international organization. They want their bodies and souls to be respected. They want their difference to be respected as well. African women, though sometimes illiterate, demand the right to education for their children, demand security, demand freedom of expression. They demand to live and not die under the fire of the enemy for some so-called democracy They want the respect for a continent. They don't want a running conflict from country to country. They don't want to be reduced to paranoia. They want to say stop, and this very loud. They want to say stop to anyone who wants to poison their life and bring them back to poverty. We say stop. No more armed conflicts, no more rifles, and no more bombs. Nothing in our eyes can justify the use of arms in our countries. Women in Africa would like your attention. They want you to walk towards development. Development will be the base, the foundation of sustainable development. We demand to think out of the box. We demand to use our energy towards attaining the Millennium Development Goals. So far, we've been blocked by a lack of political willingness, and partnerships end up mired in administration. What we do want is a concrete example, is a concrete action. We want the international resolutions to be implemented in their daily lives. But for this to happen, their first demand is peace on the African continent. Through my voice, African women repeat their first and foremost priority, which is that they will no longer be patient. They've been vexed and they've been abused. Now they say stop. The motto of African women from north to south, from east to west, is peace comes before anything else. Thank you for hearing us and spreading the word.
Grazie.
Thank you very much, Fatoumata. I think we should move on straight away to the next speaker. This is a lovely person who comes from one of the countries which has had one of the most difficult situations in Africa, from Darfur. Fatima Ulmeldin has had extremely meaningful experiences. She's a gender expert, and she's a member of the Darfur Women's Forum, and she's part of a network called Femmes et Solidarité in Africa. We have been working with Femmes et Solidarité for quite some time ourselves. She is deeply committed in her country to working for women's rights and equal opportunities. This is the first time she's come outside of Africa, and she's been with us at a number of different meetings and is learning a lot, I think. We've been quite moved and touched at how meaningful this is, both for her and for us, to have this exchange of experiences. This is an entirely new experience. Fatima, you have the floor.
Thank you, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank, first of all, good afternoon, everybody, or good evening, everybody. I would like to thank all of you, and especially the European people and Nobel Peace Prize campaign to invite us to attend this conference, which is very important for us. We as the African women, and we as from the Sudanese woman, and me from West Darfur, far away from even inside my country, from Sudan. I'm very glad to be here, and I would like to explain our situation, and as my colleagues said, that women in Africa are suffering and they have a lot of challenges. I'm Fatima Muhammad Lamaddin from West Darfur in the Sudanese Women Association Forum. This is a non-governmental organization in Sudan. It's established by the initiative of the Sudanese women activists with the Female African Solidarity, FAS. This organization is main goals of this organization is to engendering a peace process in Darfur. And we have an objective in this organization, our objective, to unite women groups in Darfur to award the peace process. As we know, Darfur is people in Darfur are suffering from the peace. We build to unite the groups of women by selecting from each groups of women activists in gender issue to be in one group to work how toward the peace process. And also our objective to build the capacity of Darfurian women for effective participation in peace process. As we know that the Darfurian women, they lack many things to be involved in the peace process. Our objective to build their capacity. Also, from this organization, our objective to build the solidarity of the Sudanese women for engendering peace process. And also, in our activity, we have some activities to achieve our goals, to building a capacity of Sudanese women to mobilize different factors to engage in the advocacy activities. As we are in the different area, we mobilize different various to engage in the advocacy for the to build the Sudanese women capacity. Also, we considerate the peace agenda in Darfur through consultative meeting, and also to facilitating the participation of the Sudanese women in the peace negotiation. Previously, when the peace negotiation started, there is no woman involved in the peace negotiation, so we try to facilitate to women to participate in the peace negotiation. This is generally is my organization in which I involved in it. And also within this, we have within this organization we have different activities to improve women's situation in our zones. We have a center in our zone. When me and another of my colleagues thinking about how to enhance women in our women's situation in our zone, we have an initiative. So we organize ourselves and then we organize ourselves by establish a committee to try to enhance women's situation. Then we sit with the community leaders and discuss about how we can improve our women's situation in this zone. Then the result of our discussion with them, we got a piece of land from this a committee, and then we went through and registered this Land for Women Development Center. So we have this our center, which this is a Women Development Center. After we register our piece for Women Development Center, we announce for all the community to be involved with us as volunteer to build this center. And then this is this picture is show us all the people come for 1 day to start to build this center by all the community involved with us. And also here, women and men here is there are women, me and the other women from this who are beneficiaries from these centers. We encourage the men to build this center. This is our center, and these are women encourage the men to build also. And here, this other of my colleagues who we assist by hand to build our center to enhance our situation in West Darfur. And this is our activity. We as women work a lot to enhance our situation in West Darfur. And also we have excuse me, I apologize because my English is not good, because it is not my mother tongue. For that, I try to deliver the message to you. And also, I have some picture of women work in the informal sector. Those women work in informal sector. They need from us to support them also by their by our activities. And these women, some of them involved in our center. And after they learn the session, they return to their farm to participate, to practice their activities. This woman inside the wheel, she dug the wheel, and she inside try to build it, to fetch water, to irrigate her farm. This is a picture so as women work in the informal sector. This is the activity of the women who work in informal sector, and we as the women work in this center. We have a target group for this center. Our target group, those women who are poor, they come to our center for. We have a literacy class for them, and also we have some project for income generation activity for those women. And also, beyond these activities, we have a class for kindergarten for the kids of those people who are poor. They didn't get access to involve to register their kids inside the schools, which is there is a lot of money spent of them. And also we have other activities inside this center. Also we have we built a hall for women to increase their raising awareness. To increase the raising awareness among the women about their rights and the importance of the education. This is the activities which we do in our zone to enhance women's situation, and we are here to let you know about the situation in our countries. Thank you for your attention, and sorry, I'm very apologize for my English because this is not my mother language. I'm very glad and for forgiveness for you. I hope that you understand me. Just I want to deliver my message. Thank you.
Grazie Fatima.
Thank you very much, Fatima. All right, we've still got 3 further very interesting speakers, so let me move on straight away. The next speaker is a new president of Femnet, appointed just recently. This is a Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you so much. Well, I've already been introduced. I'm from Cameroon. My name is Sylvie Jacqueline Ndongmo. Here today I'm representing a number of organizations, but I will just talk about the experience of 2 organizations. In Cameroon, I am a member of the League of Rights and Freedoms, which promotes human rights in Cameroon. I'm also the founding president of the League of Women for Education, created in 2004 to promote the contribution of women in education and to contribute to the sustainable development of Cameroon. Now, very, very recently, in 2009, I set up the Women's Peace Initiative. This organization is the one I would like to talk about a little bit today. This is very much in line with the campaign of NOPAW. The Women's Peace Initiative is an organization has had a cold, hard look at the realities of Africa, conflicts, war, killings, and so on. And we base ourselves on the fact that women pay the heaviest price. Women pay the heaviest price. And sometimes they don't even know why people are fighting. So we thought it would be useful in our capitals to involve women in all processes that can contribute to preventing, when it's still possible, to building peace or restoring peace. So that's why we set up this organization in 2009. Our activities are fairly simple. Training in conflict management, education in peace, even in our schools. That is what we do. And above all, we want to strengthen the role of women. We explain every day why it's useful for women to become involved to prevent conflict or build peace nationally. Now, at the African regional level, I am responsible for the NGO, as Guido was saying, Femnet. This is a network of development and communications among African women. We speak on behalf of African women in those institutions where these issues are discussed. Femnet works every day using exchanges of experience to develop strategies and information amongst organizations in Africa. We work in 3 major areas. First of all, communications, advocacy, and capacity building. In each area, I'll just give you an example. In the area of communications, Femnet has set up groups involving 7 countries in Africa, and we developed 2 newsletters called Our Rights and Women's News. We send information daily to all countries in Africa about what is happening in the world in relation to women's rights. I would like to say something that perhaps you all know already. Last October, on the 15th, which is the Day of Rural African Women, in Nairobi, Kenya, we launched the Decade of African Women. Since then, Femnet has devoted itself to transforming its 2 newsletters into a single publication. This is a copy of it, the Journal of African Women. And this is what Femnet will do for the next 10 years. It's important for African women to be able to know why it's so important to take the time to reflect upon their daily lives. It is also important to think about what is covered by the decade. This decade was launched because people saw that despite the efforts to promote women, there's an awful lot of work that remains to be done in Africa. And that is why we transformed our 2 newsletters into a single one. Now, in the area of advocacy, and Guido mentioned this already, Femnet works together with the African Union and other sub-regional institutions, as well as the United Nations, and we carry out lobbying, advocacy, so that women's issues are taken into account. With reference to the Decade for African Women, amongst the 10 themes identified last year, Femnet carried out a study and realized that development can only take place in Africa if women are involved. But at the same time, our study revealed that many women are dying every day. They're giving up their lives. They lose their lives when giving birth. How can they do this and still contribute to development? It's impossible, and the figures are horrific. So through the African Union, we've begun to think about this with other regional organizations. The African Union has decided to do something about this, given the statistics. Our first theme, therefore, is the fight against maternal and infant mortality in Africa. Femnet has taken on board this decision by the African Union. So we have a campaign, the Accelerated Campaign Against Maternal Mortality in Africa. It's called KARMA, and this is something which has been widely disseminated throughout Africa by our organizations, but a lot more by Femnet. And we're beginning to see the results today. There are ladies here in the room who can testify to this. In the countries where this campaign was launched, Senegal, Nigeria, Benin, maternal mortality has fallen sharply, and consequently the economy is doing better. These are actions that Femnet carries out every day in the area of advocacy. Recently, in the month of March 2011, just a couple of months ago, we went to the United States, and this is done every year. Femnet organizes a meeting outside the Commission for the Status of Women. We organize an African Women's Caucus in order to carry forward the thinking of African women there at the United Nations, so that their concerns are taken into account in the agreed-upon conclusions by the CSW and the UN. So the United Nations adopts conclusions, and these take into account the concerns of African women. That is the role of Femnet, and we play that role every year. And after the United Nations and the Commission on the Status of Women, Femnet goes to the sub-regions, the regions, and the individual countries to make sure that these mechanisms are actually set up in order to implement these recommendations from the CSW. I'd like to mention something that really struck us at the last session of the United Nations. The African group was represented by 3 men during the Conference on Women. So there were 3 men. Isn't that somewhat paradoxical? At the end of the conference, Femnet, therefore, as a network, disseminated this information, and we denounced this situation because it isn't right. Now, the decisions were taken in the CSW, and the 3 men's positions ran counter to the interests of the women's development movement today. Now, turning to the third area, capacity building and training. You will agree with me that all of the work that's being done can only be done if we build people's capacity. Of course, all women are involved at various different levels, but there are sometimes obstacles that block their way. That is why Femnet emphasizes capacity building for women, so that they will be able to take the necessary steps and fully play their role. Now, training takes place at all different levels. Let me explain a little bit how this works. As a regional organization, Femnet has outreach organizations, focal points in different countries. And there we organize training sessions in various areas such as leadership, women's authority, and so on. And I'm very proud to say that many women leaders today in politics, in economics, and so on, came from civil society and did benefit from this type of training. Similarly, in the area of training, I'd like to tell you about an experience in Femnet, which is rather original, and we hope that this will continue. We call it mentoring program. It's been ongoing for about 2 years. It's all very well to work for women in Africa. That's very good, but it's always a good idea to make an effort to work together. And that's why we began further training of men, so that they will understand what is at stake and so that they will join the struggle for the cause of women in Africa. That is why for the last 2 years, Femnet's been working on the Men-to-Men program, not mentoring, Men-to-Men program. And this program is producing great results. Sometimes there are meetings and men take the floor. You can imagine what this is like in Africa because they are advocating women's rights. They're saying, look, you've got to act, and they begin to act in favor of women. Now, turning to the campaign for the Nobel Peace Prize for African Women, on that I would like to say that this campaign, as you yourselves will have seen, it fits in very, very well with the mission of my organization. And I felt it was my duty to thank the founders of this campaign and tell you, you made the right choice. You made the right choice because this prize is the recognition of the of well-merited efforts. That's because African women are crushed under the weight of many, many social and familial burdens. Above and beyond that, they are considered as minors in the economy. And yet, in fact, it's the women who are carrying forward the African economy. And that is why I think they merit this prize. They deserve this prize. Moreover, this Nobel Peace Prize will represent a celebration of women globally, a celebration of women in the world. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I would just like to appeal to you, the members of the European Parliament, to join us. Fight long and hard. Join the struggle so that this Nobel Peace Prize will go to African women. This will have a multiplier effect so that Africa itself will be able to contribute to its own development and the development of the world as a whole.
Merci, Sylvie.
Thank you, Sylvie. All right, let's go on to a rebel from Africa. I say a rebel because ever since she was very young, she's always run counter to traditions, and she married the head of a different tribe. I'm talking about Bernadette Mwongo, who is from the Democratic Republic of Congo, the DRC. She has always been a woman who, from the very beginning, has sought to build bridges with others amongst the various tribes, and this during very, very difficult times when there was conflict. And that is why last year the ambassador of the United States awarded her a prize. This is the prize for the most courageous Congolese woman. I would like now to give Bernadette Mwongo the floor.
Bonjour à tout le monde.
Good afternoon, everyone. I thank you very much for giving me the floor and thank the organizers of the conference for this wonderful exchange of view. It's an honor for me to be at the European Parliament. I never dreamt that could happen, but thank you very much anyhow. I would like to talk to you about the peace process in RDC. I've been awarding the Courage Prize for the Democratic Republic of Congo in 2010. I am one of the lords, and I am chair of a program for women victims of conflict. DRC has been living through a conflict, a war between politicians, businessmen, tribes. The war began as a tribal war in 1919, but it was actually a manipulation staged by politicians. After the war came the Rwandan refugees. Then we had a freedom war. Then the DRC war, called Rectification War. And then we eventually managed to get organized as a community with leaders of all parties. We met and tried to figure out what were our faults. And after 21 days, we set up a council with all communities of the province. We met all the main actors of the Great Lakes region to settle the conflict in North Kivu. We met with Thabo Mbeki, the president of South Africa, and helped us find a solution to the citizenship problem in the province. We organized a march from Johannesburg to Pretoria. We demanded that men sign the peace agreement, otherwise we would refuse to have sex with them. And the men went to Kinshasa and signed up the peace process. But after that, we had another war with the advent of Lawrence Kunda. We went to see the rebels. We discussed with them. But after this stock-taking exercise, we went to see the President Kabila. We're just tired of so much war. We're too weak to negotiate. He called all counselors, all warlords, all high-ranking officials, and they negotiated in the neutral zone with Rwanda. Now we have peace, eventually. In 2007, we had our first democratic elections. We raised awareness amongst women. Women don't want to vote, and they don't want to vote for women. Well, they have their reasons. And women don't want to join a party to put up for an election. We have therefore raised awareness within the women community. We've trained them to engage in a political role. We've realized that women were exploited within the party. They're used as a welcome wagon for authorities. They danced for visitors, but they're not used properly within the party. Now, we told the women that if they wanted to join a party, they had to really figure out what the party was about and then sign a social contract with the men in the party. Rape, violence, people displaced, that were the three main consequences of the wars. And we had 4 to 5 cases of very serious problems. especially a woman whose vagina was shut closed with threads that were taken in a field. In a third case, 8 men raped a woman, and then they shoved a stick in their vagina and there in her anus, leading to a death. We've been given medicine by the WHO to cure this woman. Before, during war, soldiers were cutting women's breasts and were exposed them. We now need to rehabilitate these women. After they've been raped, after they've been displaced, they need to be helped. After they've been hospitalized, they need to be reinserted into society. Usually, they are thrown out by their husbands. Sometimes they've contracted AIDS. Sometimes they have to deal with an unwanted pregnancy. First, we have to deal with hunger. We had to set up a fund for them. We created roads so that they could work more easily. We favored employment. We know villages in Congo where there are no more men, only widows. These women are supposed to work for men. We've set up a training ship, and 28 women are now trained as foremen. Well, for women, actually. We've launched a new campaign for agriculture. We've distributed goats in 4 territories. That project then was 2-tiered. First peace and then agriculture. We tried to have gender equality within the project. For each community, there was 2 goats, 2 male goats, and 50 goats. Well, we realized that women were starting by getting busy with all the agriculture to forget about the conflict. We've also distributed non-food items. We're giving them seeds for subsistence. We've even created a bakery. Raped, vulnerable women, displaced women, those who have left the army are now getting together. Some of them work in that bakery. And they go about selling their breads. We set up an account. They buy the bread, resell the bread. They can keep the profit they make out of it. Last March, we realized that the Congolese people wanted a change in the regime. A delegation of 15 women went to Rwanda to have an exchange of views with the women victims of conflict. A short while after, the Rwandese president's wife, called us and told us that she wanted to set up a transboundary business opportunity. When we told her that we needed to think about the best way to help these women. Every last Thursday of the month, there is a meeting towards exchanging information. UNIFEM has financed the creation of a house for women. And women get together there every last Thursday of the month. During the latest war, we didn't ask for any help. We simply raised awareness among women so that they could collect dresses, outfits. We asked for help from the United Nations that granted us a helicopter to go to Walikale and help close to 200 women in 2 different communities. We asked that the ministry sent messages throughout the country about our action. Every year, on 8th of March, on the International Year of Women, there 2 messages are sent, one for Rwanda and one for Congo. We've organized the Women's World March in Bukavu last March. Women of the diaspora met up, even Belgian women, and we would like to thank them for being there. I hope it's not the last time. And as for the NOPAC campaign, we engage strongly in this campaign. We will raise our arms and demand everywhere in Africa and throughout the world that this prize is awarded to us. We need to help a change in mentality within men in Africa. They have no recognition of what their daughters, wives, sisters do. And they will not understand that such a prize is awarded to their wives, to their sisters, to their daughters. But we need to convert them. Unfortunately, the idea didn't come from them. We have to change their minds, and we will work hard, hand in hand, towards changing this mentality. We hope for solidarity, whether European, Asian, African, we're all women, and therefore we need to work together. Because eventually we face the same problems. Black or white, we have the same problems. Let me show you that message that our country has devised for women. In case you're raped, you must denounce the person who committed the abuse. You can see on that dress that has been made for the Great Lake region, a whole map of Africa, flags of every single community, and the woman that goes to the police to say that she's been raped and lodge a complaint. Here is the prize I've been given by the U.S. Embassy. And I even got a trophy out of it. Oh, this is the trophy of a traumatized woman. She keeps her head in her hands, traumatized by conflicts and rapes and everything. Thank you very much for your attention.
Merci Bernadette.
Bernadette, thank you so much. Well, we're coming to the last part of our meeting, but I would like to ask you whether anyone would like to ask any questions or make a brief comment to the speakers, or if you have any questions about the campaign. Just raise your hand.
Nessuna domanda?
No questions? All right. All right, in that case, I'm going to ask Nassi Fatou to come to the front. I'm sorry. Yes, madam.
Not a question, but just merely to say that how deserved the African women are to have a prize. When you look at the conflicts they are facing, and you look at the immense poverty they have, we have problems in Europe too. We have zones where we have women who have lived terrible conflicts in the Balkans, for instance, and we often say in Europe that you can't have any peace in Europe unless there will be a peace in the Balkans. I think we are more or less, all of us here in Europe, products or results of some kind of conflict somewhere in Europe. Personally, myself, I'm Swedish, but my mother came from Finland as a refugee and had hardships during the war, so she came over as a refugee. And I wouldn't be sitting here if it hadn't been a war. I think this is something that really is very important to stress, that we in Europe are not either free of conflicts, and we should be more solidaric towards what African women are living. I feel very, very bad when I hear, for instance, what one of the persons said, rapes, cutting out breasts and things like that. We have also mass graves in the Balkans that we find every day, traffic of organs and other things that are rather horrible. I think human rights is something that we really have to defend. And therefore, I think it's very, very difficult for me to understand that somebody would say that I don't want to give my vote for this, the Nobel Prize for African women, because I think we should all be solidaric. I think here in Europe we should be very solidaric that women vote for these African women and support them in all the ways we can. Not just in the conflict projects, but also when it comes to development and being more fair when it comes to listen to their problems of poverty. Because we also face poverty in Europe, and I think we should think about that. I think destiny is something that is like a big ball that is turning around. One day you're rich, the next day you can be poor. One day you're lucky, the next day you can be very unlucky. I think this is something we all have to think about. So I support really this campaign. Thank you very much.
Grazie.
Thank you very much, madam, for expressing your views. Did anyone else want to add anything? I wanted to give you some information about the campaign. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Go ahead. Yes, I would like to ask a question. I'd like to ask about the extent to which their opinions are penetrating African society. Are you reaching people? What impact are your associations having in various parts of your societies? Not so much the effects already described, these are already quite significant, but I'm asking about what impact you really think you can have, given how important women are, and how women provide support for their entire families. And sometimes we're talking about the extended family, not the European nuclear family. So really, what impact are your efforts having in the communities of Africa? And why are you getting so little recognition? Why isn't it possible for everyone to see how strong you are? Look at the symbol you've got for this campaign, the women walking in Africa. Well, thank you for that very interesting question. I'm not sure who would like to reply. I would like to say that these efforts in Africa have influenced some people. We now have a head of state in Liberia who's a woman, and we know what has happened historically in Liberia. But now Ellen Johnson Sirleaf is the head of state there and supports our campaign. In fact, she was elected, and as some of our women have emphasized in the last few days, she was democratically elected in Africa, where traditionally women haven't been able to carry much political weight. A few weeks ago, Mali got a woman prime minister, and just in recent days, she said quite provocatively, "You in Italy, when are you going to have a woman president? Or when are you in Europe going to have more women leaders in politics?" Well, that said, let me give the floor. Amani, please.
Thank you for this question, because it's really very crucial, because sitting here, as I said, and not doing an impact on the daily life of our women, then it will be really very irrelevant. I will give two examples. One I gave in my presentation, which is the gender parity in the African Union. This was actually also generated from us as women associations, because we said unless we really achieve gender parity in the African Union, then we have no really power. So we lobbied and advocated with the presidents during the African Union Summit, with all the presidents of Africa, with the GMAC, which is the Gender is My Agenda campaign. And actually, two of the presidents of Africa supported the gender parity, the Thabo Mbeki of South Africa and Abdallah Wade of Senegal, and they really advocated with us, all the other African presidents, until we got gender parity in the African Union. It was implemented at the same year after Maputo, and now, thanks to our lobby and advocacy, we have this gender parity in the African Union. Another example I want to say about also how we have an implement. We did in the COMESA, which is the Common Market of Eastern Southern Africa, which is 19 countries of 400 million people, which is almost half of Africa. We went to make a study in the cross-border women traders. These are really women who have no voice, and we thought that we should be their voice. These women are crossing the borders, very small products they have just to go and sell it in the other country and bring another products from the other country coming back. Those women are paying customs, they have no access to any service, and they have no rights. They don't know their rights, because in the COMESA trade treaty, there are products which are exempted from custom, and they should not pay money for these products. So what we did is we raised the voice of these women. We went to the COMESA summit, where all the presidents of the COMESA, 19 countries, are there, and I gave a presentation saying that these women, the policies you as head of taking is not implemented on the grassroots. So you need to implement this. You need to work on the training of the custom official on the ground in order that those women know their rights. And we as civil society, we performed some training programs for these women who are illiterate, who don't know how to speak English, French, whatever, it's all in local languages, to tell them about their rights. So the whole issue is really how you educate these women about their rights, and how you educate and advocate among the head of states to implement the policies they did. So this actually, I just want to give these two examples of how we have an impact on the daily life of the people and our women. Thank you.
Thank you, Mani. Hélène, tu veux ajouter quelque chose?
Hélène. Yes. Perhaps I could just add something briefly. This is a very interesting question. And in fact, we've already been asked about this in Ancona, where we had an opportunity to share our experiences too. I think that our sister has just said something that's quite true. We do have the legal instruments that enable African women to work in the grassroots in order to raise awareness. This work is being done, and governments are working as well. They've adopted laws against genital mutilation, for instance, and now they're trying very hard to enforce that law. And there are other United Nations resolutions, number 1820, for instance, where rape has become a crime against humanity, and this is based on the disgraceful experiences of the war in the Congo. Now, what about the work we do every day in our communities? Well, I would first of all like to invite you to visit an African country of your choice. You will be received like a king. It's all very well to theorize, but it's not enough. When you actually come to Africa and when you actually see for yourself the impact of African women's activities, you will see there are rarely any women in Africa who don't do anything. Women are very visible there. You see them along the roads. They have their little stands where they're selling, even if it's only one little bottle of 1 liter of oil that they've produced, and they may break that down into 10 small packages to sell it. But imagine, these women have thought up this way to feed their families, so they are visible. If you go out to the countryside today in Africa, you are going to see these women. They always are carrying bundles on their head. They're going from the fields to the market and back, and you'll see them along the roads. They're waiting for a bus or a car, which will help them to get to the local town to sell their goods, just so they can get a small profit. But, of course, transport is very, very poor. We see in Africa today African women who have penetrated areas which they were not allowed to get into before. Come to Africa. We invite you and our sisters, don't we? All of our sisters, don't we invite the men to come to Europe, to Africa. They can choose whatever country they like. You will be welcome. And we want you to see what's going on. If you want people to commit to development in Africa today, you need to come and see this. You will see that the African women are a credible alternative today, and you cannot avoid us. So let us commit to a new partnership with African women. You will see just how powerful we will be to transform Africa and the world. Thank you, Hélène. Madame Ngomo.
Merci beaucoup. Je voudrais revenir.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for your question, sir. You're quite right in what you say. You are right to be worried about what message is coming across at local level in African society. All of our sisters have said the same thing. There are some things which are very clear. We have a worrisome maternal mortality rate. We have feminization of poverty. There's the problem of wars and conflicts, which leads to all sorts of human rights violations that we've been discussing. Now, how do you get your message across in such a context? It may go slowly, but I can tell you that we haven't yet succeeded. You know, you can't convince people if they turn a deaf ear to what you say. There is no peace without bread. If a woman is hungry, she doesn't need a Nobel Peace Prize. She needs food. She needs bread. Now, I agree with your question. The message is getting across slowly but surely, but it is getting across. And I say that because there are women who are working every day to change what we see in Africa. Amongst our associations represented here, as sisters have said, people are becoming more aware of how to enforce their rights and demand their rights. Bernadette said earlier that people are even asking for resources in order to ensure minimum food security. So the message is getting across slowly but surely into African society at every level. It's slow for the reasons I've explained, and that's why we're here today to say, look, despite all of these difficulties, which we experience every single day, African women are still taking Africa forward thanks to their mobilization.
Sì, Sylvie.
Thank you very much, Sylvie. Okay. Well, Certainly, we could spend a lot of time debating all of these subjects. I'm afraid that I need to say a word about other people who were supposed to be with us today, but who unfortunately have not been able to come. We had many cost constraints that prevented this. This whole campaign, in fact, started on a voluntary basis. A lot of volunteers are contributing to it. It was only last week that we received a first contribution from the Foreign Affairs Ministry in Italy in order to be able to carry out some of our initiatives. And I want to thank most warmly two European Parliament groups for helping us with this meeting. Not only are they involved in the campaign, they are supporting the campaign, but in addition to that, they have contributed with their own resources and their staff so that we could hold this meeting today. In particular, I would like to thank the members of the ALDE group. We had Madame Griesberg, and also we have Mr. Rinaldi, who's going to help us draw this meeting to a conclude. And I'd also like to, so that was the ALDE. I would also like to thank the NGL, known as the GUE, for their support as well. Before we get to the conclusions, though, I'd like to say a few words myself about the campaign. On the 1st of February, we submitted our candidature officially. We received word that our candidacy had been accepted. Minister Frattini, in fact, referred to this in his video. Now, this was swimming against the tide because it's a collective nomination, and it's difficult for people to understand who will receive the prize. Everybody kept saying, who's going to get the prize? Who's going to manage it? As you know, the Nobel Peace Prize amounts to 1 million euros, which is not a small amount of money to manage. Well, when we put in our nomination, we said that this goes beyond the prize. It's not the million euros that are going to solve the problems of Africa. It's the African women who, from the very beginning in Addis Ababa, when we talked about this campaign, said, look, Guido, really, it's not the money that we're interested in. Obviously, money is useful for our activities. We do need, of course, material resources. But the real prize for us is the relationships that we can build, new type of cooperation that we have to build. We need to put an end to this neo-colonial cooperation which continues to exploit our people. We need to change this. And that is the real prize that we've got our eye on. And we can get this prize for African women. Above and beyond the institution per se, we have seen that many people share and welcome this initiative, right and left, without distinction. And that's been the case from the very beginning. But applause and welcoming this is not enough. We need real support from the political powers that be. We want to talk about these problems. We want to talk about our relationships. We want to talk about policy and cooperation with the political powers that be. Now, I may be disappointed today, but that doesn't matter. I think that I can more or less express the views of African women here. I know that they are disappointed. They've been telling me in recent days, I hope we'll be able to say certain things to the members of the European Parliament. Okay, Monday is not such a great day for the European Parliament. We had to take today because the ministers asked us for this day. But if you really believe in something, sometimes it works. You've seen that people came in and out of the meeting, and people who believe in us are here sitting at the table. They are talking to us. So we mustn't become discouraged. We must continue the fight, and that's one of the objectives of seeking this prize, because we have to change policy and politics. So far, interests, people's vested interests have predominated. What we need to do is ensure that everybody shares in the common goods. Now, who's going to get this prize? In Ancona yesterday, a number of proposals were made in this regard. We would like to work together to grant the Nobel Peace Prize to the people who build peace. It's symbolic. These are people who are committed to a new relationship with other people. People, institutions, associations, and NGOs and cooperation agencies are also responsible for changing the way we cooperate. I'm president of an association of 48 associations, and I've been a representative of Italian NGOs here in Brussels for 13 years. And I think that we all need to think about how we engage in cooperation efforts. We need to build bridges. Now, we're thinking about September, if we can use the internet to do this. For September, we want to have an instrument whereby every European citizen somehow can conclude a pact with 1/1,000,000th part of Africa, not €1,000,000. We want 1,000,000 pacts, 1,000,000 alliances, and Africa will conclude this pact with Europe, so it'll be a two-way street. And we'll divide this amongst the people of Europe and Africa so that everybody can reach out their hand and reach each other. We can do it with Google, we can do it with photographs on the internet. People will get to know Africa that way, and then we can deepen the relationship. We'll understand who's really willing to be involved and who's not. So between now and October, regardless of what happens with the Nobel Peace Prize, we will have built 1,000,000 bridges between Europe and Africa. We will have begun a truly new type of cooperation between Europe and Africa. And we can give this as an example to our institutions, starting with our political friends and colleagues. And then somebody said, well, look, we'll have to celebrate this. From the very beginning, Hélène was saying, well, we've already won the prize, really. The fact that women have come from Africa here to talk about Darfur, their people, their associations, the fact that we are able to get women to speak out about these experiences is already a victory for women. Earlier I was saying that their question was, do people outside Africa know what we're doing? Today, thanks to this campaign, a lot more is being said about the women of Africa around the world today. Clarissa came from the United States. Amy made a commitment to come here, and she was talking to me about other initiatives where she can disseminate information about the initiative and so on. So we can see that this is spreading like wildfire, and it's becoming a bigger and bigger event. So yesterday, on my proposal, we decided that we would celebrate Walking Africa, a day of Walking Africa on the 10th of December, when the Nobel Prize is handed out in Oslo. And we'll celebrate this all together in our villages, in our cities, in our homes. We will turn this event into a festival for Africa. And if we're able to talk to each other via Skype, video conferencing, and so on, if we're able to exchange pictures of these events with each other, that would be a good idea. We're working with MTV on a program. We hope it'll be ready by September, but we want to show it on the 10th of December in order to link up all of these different parties. We don't need a huge congress or conference. Sometimes music and culture brings us closer together than big meetings. The other evening, there was an African singer who did us the honor of singing African songs for us, and they were absolutely wonderful, and this created a wonderful climate. And I would like to invite, this was an invitation for us to keep going. So, if we win the prize, we will have succeeded in building these bridges, and then we'll be able to celebrate together the will to create a new pact between Europe and Africa. Okay, now I would like to hand the floor over for a concluding message. I'm going to give the floor to Nafissatou Ndiaye from Senegal. She represents the Ministry of Gender Equality. But the minister wasn't able to come, so we're very happy that Nafissatou can join us.
Bonsoir à toute l'assistance.
Good afternoon. I am honored to be in front of you to deliver this message. First, because we're satisfied and very optimistic. Since we came to Europe, first to Italy and then here, we've been able to see how committed people were around the Nobel Initiative. All through these events, we've listened to extremely committed speeches that denounced unfair trade between Western and African countries, exchanges and trade partnership that end up bringing down the continent.
We are trying to fight dictators who are pillaging their own people and drawing their people into unending wars with the terrible desolation where the women and children are the greatest victims, the worst, most hard hit. We can still be hopeful, though. Despite this rather black picture that I've painted, the women of Africa have been working with courage and dignity in order to build ramparts, solid ramparts, on which Africa can rely and place their trust. So for all of these reasons, African women urge the international community to give their support to this campaign so that the Nobel Peace Prize of 2011 will be given to the women of Africa. Now, we expect this in particular from the European Parliament, because the European Parliament's role in North-South relations is decisive. And we believe in this. Starting today, we assume that you will give us your support. We have the March of Women from Africa and the diaspora. They will be accompanied by their sisters from other continents to the Nobel Prize ceremony for 2011. At this stage in the campaign, we need to mobilize everyone, in particular the 53 states of Africa. We need support from international institutions such as the European Parliament, COMESA, the West African Community, and others, in order to ensure the final selection. Senegal itself has already begun to work on this, and that indeed is why I'm here. This commitment is what's represented today. But before I complete my presentation, I know that all of the sisters who've made presentations today are mostly from civil society, but today it's necessary to underscore the collaboration, strong collaboration that must be established between governments and civil society. In Senegal, we've seen a lot. We say that if women are still discriminated against and have fallen behind, it's because somehow their governments are not involved enough and civil society hasn't pushed hard enough yet. So in Senegal, since 2001, in our constitution, we have provisions to fight against this type of discrimination. And the first of these was to create a gender mechanism. It's a Ministry for Gender Equality responsible for public policy on equality between men and women. So a law was adopted as a result. In fact, there are several laws. I'm just going to mention the women's right of access to land and the right to use water for farming. And that's because we saw that women do not accept the land, or they're not able to get access to the land, or it's very poor land. It's sometimes in areas where they cannot farm, nor do they have access to agricultural water. So this law intends to give them access on an equal footing with men to good land. There's also tax equality law. In Senegal, women and men did not have the same wages. for example, in the civil service. That's because women had higher tax rates, higher than men. But this new law was adopted and implemented. So today, equal pay for equal work between men and women, that's what we've got in Senegal. There's a law on gender equality, which is absolute within electoral bodies. This was also adopted recently in Senegal and is going to be the subject of an international conference on gender equality in Dakar on the 15th and 16th of June. And that is to share with other African countries information about this law and how to implement it and enforce it in practice. Senegal has also committed to a gender mainstreaming process in institutions. Thus, various ministries have been targeted and they will be audited. These are gender audits. They are being prepared on the basis of legal texts. And the ministries will be audited for all inequalities, and this will ensure that women and men have the same rights and the same benefits. So those are some of the laws I wanted to mention for you, for my sisters who are here, to tell you the country's changing. The countries in Africa are changing. There is some progress. Not everything is bad. There is progress, and both the political authorities and NGOs, civil society, have to work hand in hand to put an end to discrimination. Now, of course, I'm from Senegal. I'm on the scientific committee as well, and we have participated in the No Pau campaign in our own way. So that is what I want to just mention briefly now. In Senegal, we organized a press conference on the 20th of October 2010, and it's a prelude to the International Study Conference, which was planned for the 27th to the 30th of October 2010. This enabled us to inform and raise awareness of the international and national community about the reasons for our campaign. We wanted to present the themes and projects of the Dakar seminar. And this was reported in 10 audiovisual and written media, both nationally and abroad. Here's a picture showing this press conference. Then we organized an international seminar to increase awareness. It was a 4-day seminar in Dakar. We had about 50 institutional representatives participating. Here are some pictures of the seminar. And this is all in the context of the No Pau campaign. We also put up posters and billboards in public places so people learn about the campaign. And also this helps us collect signatures. We've disseminated the manifest of the campaign. This is an awareness day at the University of Dakar, where we work together with students to get signatures for our petition. I've said we've got a lot of the media involved through our awareness campaign. We've organized a campaign recently. It started in Dakar. So these are pictures of the events I'm describing. We also carried out other activities. Our scientific committee carried activities at the World Festival, also at the World Social Forum. So there we are. This is a march during the World Forum. And the scientific committee participated. We had our banners, as you can see, so that people would know about No Pau. So these are some of the activities that the scientific committee has carried out, and we will continue our efforts so that in 2011 African women will receive the Nobel Peace Prize. Thank you for your attention. I'm told that we have house rules here in the European Parliament. I have to listen to the member of the European Parliament. I'd like to give Mr. Rinaldi the floor. Thank you very much for everything you've done for Africa, first and foremost, and also to help us with this meeting. Niccolo Rinaldi. Well, thank you very much, Guido. I'd like to thank you and Chipsy, your organization, for all of the work you're doing for Africa. We think a lot about Africa and cooperation and so on, but we've seen that in recent years there's less attention being paid to Africa, and in fact finance is falling for development cooperation. And I just want to say that here in the European Parliament, CIPSI is getting a lot of attention. This is something we're debating in my country, and it's a source of inspiration, in fact, so that people in politics will and in civil society will continue to focus on Africa. We're all profoundly attached to Africa, but we have not yet fully understood it. You can think back to the Samuel Huntington's Conflict of Civilizations. In his book, he talks about 8 civilizations in the world, but he doesn't even consider Africa to be a civilization. So this is clearly a work of fiction and not fact. So we've, and that work, unfortunately, was used to create guidelines in the former American administration. So I'm very pleased that CIPSI could organize this meeting here in the European Parliament today. I've been working for 12 years in the CIPSI newsletter. It's one of the few instruments available in Italy to help us to think about Africa and to develop a cooperation there. This is a publication that we're very happy continues. I would like to thank all of you for coming and participating in this meeting at the European Parliament today. Do not worry about the low level of participation by members of the European Parliament. This is the rule here. That's the way things work, especially on a Monday afternoon. You should really never organize events on the basis of ministers' agendas because you can't really rely on them, unfortunately. But what's important is that this institution has, institutionally speaking, officially hosted this initiative. And we have officially listened to the reasons behind this extraordinary campaign. And above all, we had a chance to listen to your testimony and presentations. Whoever goes to Africa, if anybody goes to Africa, knows that women are the key to the whole continent. You are the cornerstone of the entire society, and indeed the special focus of our attention in Africa. I've traveled to more than 40 countries in Africa myself, many times, and so I'm familiar with most African countries, and I traveled there for a number of different reasons, for my studies, with my dissertation in Senegal, in Dakar, on the urban local economy, work on the streets, and all the small trades, which to a great extent involve women. And that's where I learned my first lessons, when the traders in Peking on the periphery of Dakar told me, the women selling from their stands on the streets told us that they wanted to They didn't want to sell all of their products as quickly as possible just to go back home. They sold their goods gradually on the street so that they could be in the street from the morning up until the early afternoon, and that was it, because they wanted to be part of the social fabric of their community. They wanted to be on the street, not only just to go there, sell their goods, take their money and go away. And this was an initial lesson for me about the specific features of Africa and of the extraordinary wealth that women represent there. I also traveled in Africa for political reasons, together with Nathalie Griesbeck, as co-chairs of the Network of European Parliamentarians, together with the African Liberal Democrats. And we put together this network, working together with an MP from Kenya, Margaret Kennard. And she seemed to be rather timid and to keep a low profile at first. But when she met with people, when she had an opportunity to speak out to people who had come from abroad, she's a volcano of energy. She's extremely charismatic, as she drew the attention of the public and the audience, and she was able to make good use of the opportunities. And today she's the Environment Minister in Kenya. And we have a lengthy history of cooperation with her in our network. This is the Euro-African Parliamentary Network. I've also traveled in Africa for sports. I participated in the mountain climbing expeditions in a number of African countries, in Kenya, where we climbed up to 5,200 meters. I was stuck for 3 days and nights in a bivouac where we didn't have any food at all. And my two Italian and friends and I were met by an African girl and her mother who exhibited the typical generosity of the poor. They gave us everything they had. They gave us clothing and food, and they didn't ask us for anything in return. I've also carried out a number of missions with the European Parliament as a member of the staff and now as a member of the European Parliament. In 1996, I went with Eugenio Milandri, who couldn't be here today, but he's a driving force of this campaign in Angola. We went to Angola, and we were in a city which was under siege from UNITA. They were in terrible straits. There was a terrible humanitarian crisis, but we were able to meet an association of war wounded, people who had suffered injuries because of mines in Angola. And the two coordinators for that association were women. One was blind, and the other had lost a leg and a hand. One held up the other, one led the way, and the other one held up the one who'd lost her leg. And they were so human, they were so humble, and they gave us a very brief but effective explanation of their list of priorities, what they were doing, what they needed, what their priorities were. It was all very clear. They didn't complain about anything, but we understood immediately that these two women who were disabled, but they were the backbone of a community of people with disabilities who had been wounded in war. So every time I've gone to Africa, every mission, every experience taught me something. There are episodes, and every single time it's women who are at the center of these events. So this is something we often discuss in the Development Cooperation Committee here in the European Parliament. Many countries are achieving a number of the Millennium Development Goals, but politically and socially, health, economically, and so on, all of this is due to the role played by African women, always, without exception. We don't have enough time, but we could give you a whole list of countries who have achieved the Millennium Development Goals or are approaching these goals, and women are always the driving force, almost always the driving force for these achievements. So women really count in Africa more and more. In fact, the only country where women are majority in the parliament is in Africa. It's Rwanda. This is unthinkable in a country such as mine. So we welcome this Gypsy initiative. It's a provocative, innovative initiative vis-a-vis the Nobel Prize process. The Nobel Prize is also recognition in the media. And what's really wonderful about this campaign is that the Nobel Peace Prize would be given to a widespread section of humanity. We don't know their name and their family name, so they're individually visible, but it's for African women who deserve to be recognized as a whole. So this nomination is the most democratic possible nomination. Because it recognizes these coalitions of women who work every hard day unrecognized without distinguishing themselves as individuals. And it would be wonderful if they could receive the highest prize that the international community has to give them. And that is how they will become visible and recognizable. And that's how I look at the campaign. On the 10th of December, I hope that we will not need any alternative or parallel initiatives. I hope that on the 10th of December, we'll be able to celebrate the recognition given to African women through this prize. And certainly we'll continue to support the initiative here in the European Parliament. Well, within the limits of our resources. European members of Parliament are not actually allowed to submit nominations and openly support them. That's something for national parliaments. We think our rules have to be updated, in fact, to take into account the emergence of a European Parliament, which is universally elected, and Norway and Sweden as well. It's a detail, okay. But here in this House, we can open many, many doors. This is a very important echo chamber where information gets passed around. To conclude, let me recall an African saying, if to see certain things, you have to have eyes that have cried. So many African women have had to cry during their lives, but nonetheless, they never stopped. They've gone much further than most of the rest of us.
Grazie, Nicolò.
Thank you very much, Nicola. Well, look, we're out of time, so I'm not going to add anything further. Thank you all very much for participating. I hope that you can all not only support the campaign, but disseminate information about the campaign. If you look on our website, you'll see all the latest news. Thank you all very much and have a good evening.